I heard it bang, bang, bang.
I need roads closed off, massive crime scene.
I just dropped to the ground.
Every available unit in the 103 here right now.
It's supposed to be getting better.
My son never even got a chance to live his life.
It's supposed to be safer. But for so many people, why doesn't it feel that way?
You can't walk your own streets without getting shot. Something's wrong with that.
At a time when anyone can print out a weapon of war.
This turns a weapon into a machine gun.
100%, ma'am.
With the press of a button.
Ordered off the internet?
Today, we'll show you how the experts on the front lines are taking aim at the problem.
If you're looking at a beach full of sand, each one of those grains of sand is a gun that's simply lying dormant somewhere in the city.
And returning fire.
Sometimes you'll see things that, completely shock you.
Plus, a groundbreaking survey conducted by the Turn to Tara team adds new context to why so many communities across the tri-state are living under the gun.
It's easier to get a gun than it is to get a book.
I'm senior investigative reporter Tara Rosenblum, and I'm here to talk to you about the gun violence problem plaguing the tri-state. I've seen it and reported on it so many times, too many times, how it can take just one bullet to shatter an entire community, that feeling of safety and well-being stolen in an instant. That's why the Turn to Tara team decided to dedicate 3 full years to produce an unprecedented study of deadly shootings, the people behind the trigger, and the men and women targeting the brutality.
She could be playing for the WNBA at some point. She's gone. Her family has lost her. Her mother's only daughter.
My best friend was taken away from me, my soulmate.
There's a rhythm to a basketball court, a steady beat, a game of inches where every second counts. Shamoya McKenzie knew that rhythm beyond her years.
Shamoya was the tallest in the Westchester leagues.
6 feet 2 inches tall at just 13, she was playing varsity for Mount Vernon's high school team.
This was when she won the championship.
With UConn already knocking on her door.
There was no stopping for her.
That certainly was true on the basketball court, but not on the street.
Stray bullet, catch my knees in her head.
On December 31st, 2016, Shamoya and her mother were in a car on the streets of Mount Vernon, New York, when a single gunshot rang out. The bullet hit Shamoya in the head, and in an instant, all that promise and potential was gone.
It was coming right in my face, but she'd take a bullet for me. She did, because she was tall. So the bullet went straight in her head.
And Shamoya wasn't even the target. Police later found the shooting was the result of a gang beef that spilled out onto the street. The young basketball phenom, who always knew the right place to be on the court, was in this instance simply in the wrong place at the wrong time.
She was jovial, she was friendly, she was just cute. You understand? Sorry, tears in my eyes.
But her pain is not unique. We got an assist from combing through the federal data, and it shows gun violence is one of the leading causes of death among children and teens in the tri-state. And while overall gun deaths have fallen in recent years, they remain alarmingly high. According to the CDC, 531 people were killed by firearms in New York, 244 in New Jersey, and another 124 in Connecticut last year. The Turn to Tara team has spent the past 2 years digging deeper into those numbers. To do that, we sent out a first-of-its-kind survey to 500 convicted killers across the tri-state to learn more about what led them to live under the gun. But first, we wanted to know where their guns are coming from and how new technology is making firearms even more lethal. So we turned to one of the nation's top law enforcement gun experts.
I've been doing this for 27 years.
On a frigid February afternoon at a shooting range on Long Island,
This turns a weapon into a machine gun.
100%, ma'am.
recently retired Special Agent in Charge John DeVito showed us the tiny piece of plastic that creates huge problems.
You can order it off the internet, you can
Or
order it
print
off,
it.
print it in your backyard.
These conversion devices, or Glock switches as they're called, cost almost nothing to buy or make, but we've been paying for them in terms of lives lost since they hit the streets of the tri-state. According to the most recent federal data, between 2012 and 2016, the ATF seized 814 guns that had been converted to fully automatic. But in the next 5 years, federal investigators seized 5,849 fully automatic weapons, a 719% increase. But Glock switches aren't the only deadly threat out there. During a second visit with DeVito at his Manhattan office, he showed us the weapons that haunt law enforcement everywhere.
What makes these ghost guns so attractive to criminals?
They believe it gives you anonymity from law enforcement.
DeVito was just 15 when he learned what happens when there's a gun in the wrong hands.
I was raised by a single mother. She was my world, and unfortunately I lost her on February 8, 1990. I myself was shot multiple times. I fortunately lived, but I've lived every single day since then with, of course, survivor's guilt. I came to a point in my life where I tried to put the self-pity, regret, shame, and guilt aside and simply focus on, well, what can I do to help others?
There's no better example of that than what happened 3 years ago after a lone gunman used a Glock 17 handgun to unleash terror in Brooklyn, firing off 33 rounds inside a crowded subway car.
10 people were shot, nearly 20 others were also injured.
You were one of the first law enforcement executives on the scene. Give me the visual of that.
It was mayhem, still partial smoke down there. It was quite shocking. We tried to figure out how that gun made it to the hands of that shooter, and we do what ATF does best.
What the ATF does best is trace weapons.
It took 10 to 12 hours, but what we had was a life of crime that spanned about 15 years in about 5 different states.
Unfortunately, the system doesn't always work that well. The United States has more guns than people, with about 500 million in circulation. DeVito's office itself regulates 3,897 federal firearm licenses in the state, with just 11 investigators. The federal government has historically resisted adding new officers, so DeVito got creative, expanding a joint firearms task force to give NYPD officers some federal privileges to investigate gun violations and potentially link them to local cases.
If you were looking at a beach full of sand, each one of those grains of sand is a gun that's simply lying dormant somewhere in the city. We lack that unified approach in our nation. We don't have a unified strategy to address gun violence. We simply don't. Because gun violence is the #1 threat to our society. When you have 1.5 million people killed by gun violence in our nation, that's a dramatic problem that we need to take more seriously.
Our first of its kind study of gun violence in the tri-state highlights that very problem.
How often did you carry a gun?
I carry a gun every day, miss.
We sent out a survey to hundreds of murderers behind bars over 2 years. Of the 102 convicted killers who responded, just 3 bought their weapons legally. The rest either got it from a friend, stole it, or purchased it on the street. Average price, around $200.
You would get a gun quicker than you would get $5 and get a meal.
We've been talking about the what when it comes to gun violence. Former Brooklyn drug dealer Darius Morgan, who is serving a life sentence for murder, explains the why.
If a person don't feel that they deserve to live or have a purpose to live, how could they respect the next person?
What type of gun was it?
It was a 9mm.
Matthew Spanberg is the gunman behind an infamous gas station murder on Long Island 3 decades ago.
Dennis Folk was shot in the head during a robbery back in 1993.
Why do you think gun violence has spiked so dramatically in the tri-state in recent years?
Because of the access of guns. They go down south and they buy guns and bring them up and sell them in the streets in New York because they have gun laws down in the southern states are lax.
And that pipeline's most popular product is a handgun, the same weapon Spanberg used, and the most popular weapon listed in our survey, usually obtained no more than a few months before the crime, sometimes on the very same day. It's the kind of raw information even the feds don't always have access to.
I applaud you for what you did. The fact that you have this viewpoint now coming directly from the people that have done these types of crimes is invaluable information, and that's that gap that we need to fill here in this country.
What is the unfinished work here?
We will never be finished when it comes to better protecting the public from gun violence. Any one person injured by a gun is one too many.
Shamoya McKenzie is one of the one too many. Her promising young life benched in the blink of an eye, a loss her mother feels as intensely today as she did the day it happened 8 years ago.
It's just a pain that never goes away. We have to protect our communities. We have to, because another mother shouldn't go through what I'm going through.
Because there are so many other families across the tri-state living with the same pain.
He was just 14. He didn't even get to live a life.
But can different laws in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut lead to different results? Plus, we'll take you behind the scenes of one of the nation's busiest crime labs, where investigators work each day under the gun. Tucked away in the basement of a nondescript building in Queens.
Nice to meet you. I'm Tara.
Is New York's real-life CSI.
Any firearm-related evidence from a gun crime in the city comes here.
A place where forensics and firearms collide. NYPD Captain Matthew Strong is an expert on ballistics, and today, our tour guide.
That is an M4.
How many different types of guns do you have in this reference room?
Just over 300, and that goes from pistols all the way up to rifles and shotguns.
What types of guns do you see the most?
Semi-automatic handguns are the vast majority of the work that we do here. They're the ones that you see mostly used in street crime in New York.
Do you see the same guns at times used over and over again in similar crimes?
I mean, we see a little bit of everything, and sometimes you'll see things that, you know, completely shock you, like very expensive firearms somehow ending up on the street. These guns get stolen, they get resold, so you never know what you're gonna see.
And what they saw in 2023, according to Captain Strong, was a record for the Firearms Analysis Lab.
We process just over 7,500 guns for the year, so it's a lot.
A lot of the gang members that we interviewed told us that their weapon of choice is ghost guns. So how does that impact your processing here?
The gun parts that people are buying and or manufacturing themselves, they still have those individual characteristics, so you're not going to escape the science there. Once the gun is fired, the principles that have governed our science with commercially manufactured firearms work the same way with ghost guns.
In fact, it was solid forensic analysis that caught Byron Brown.
I'm serving life without parole.
In April of 1997, he shot Amityville cab driver and father of two Thomas White in the back during a botched robbery.
They arrested me in New York, and they found a loaded .380 that I did the shooting with.
Police say they've caught the man responsible for the murder of an Amityville cab driver.
I made a mistake, and I take full accountability of it.
But Brown admits it wasn't the first time he'd pulled a trigger.
You are serving life without the possibility of parole. You've got nothing to lose.
Yes, ma'am.
Keep it real for me right now.
Yes, ma'am.
How many people have you shot?
Over 12 people I know of.
That you know of?
I know of.
His story highlights another groundbreaking revelation in our survey, where killers explained how they entered a life under the gun. For Brown, it came early.
I grew up stealing guns, maybe 12 years old. Every day, I was surrounded by violence, destruction, chaos, trauma, whatever you want to call it. That's what I was engaged in. And I didn't believe that I was going to be living at the age of 21. So I didn't care. I ain't had nothing to live for. All my childhood friends grew up together. They all have murder cases, murder convictions, where they did 15, 30 years in prison. That was, like you say, a badge of honor that we came up with. Like, yeah, if you killed somebody, so what? We come out the next day and act like nothing happened. That's just how we grew up. You suppress the human emotions behind, oh yeah, you just killed this lady's husband or her son. That didn't resonate with us.
What would have helped you all those years ago and prevented you from pulling the trigger?
Being more engaging socially with other role models, or, you know, what you would call, say, like a mentor. I never had a mentor.
At this point, we've talked a lot about one kind of gun violence, where there's a perpetrator and a victim, but that's not the only kind. There's another kind of violence people tend to avoid talking about, when the perpetrator and victim are the same person. Studies show half of all suicides are with a gun, and 60% of all gun deaths are suicides.
I think it's important that we're open, we break the stigmas.
Dr. Jason Toms is the former choral director of Concordia College in Bronxville. He was just 20 when he married his wife, Treva Foss Toms, an accomplished singer.
Oh yeah, beautiful voice.
But he says the beauty in her voice only hid the inner pain she struggled with every day.
My wife had been battling mental illness for a long time. January 9th of 2020, she took her own life by using a shotgun.
He's convinced that if New York's recently enhanced red flag laws had been in place then, he'd still hear the sound of her voice today.
I think there was a chance that she would have been alive a lot longer.
Red flag orders give judges the power to have law enforcement seize firearms from people deemed mentally unstable and violent. New York amended its red flag laws in the aftermath of the mass shooting of 13 people at a Buffalo supermarket in 2022. Now prosecutors and police are required to report anyone they suspect of being a danger, and hospitals must inform families of the option to flag a loved one.
To me, I was confused by the fact that Treva had been in a mental health facility for more or less the entire fall, and that there was no way for her to be connected to a list to say this is the person that should not be getting a gun.
The science shows he could be correct. A recent study by Duke University found that for every 20 guns removed because of a red flag order, one suicide is prevented. Connecticut passed the nation's first red flag law back in 1999. Since then, 20 more states have joined it, including New York and New Jersey. We dug into the data and found seizures are soaring in all 3 states. Judges have approved more than double the extreme risk protection orders in New York, with significant increases in New Jersey and Connecticut. But unfortunately, the ERPO process isn't without its problems. In some cases, the sheer number of ERPOs is straining the resources of already depleted police departments. But for Dr. Toms, that's a small price to pay to save a life.
Hopefully, there will be dozens or hundreds or even one less person who dies by suicide. And to me, this law is, you never know how many people it's going to affect, but if it affects one, it's a good law.
Coming up,
let's move forward together, y'all.
A local community looks for solutions, one step at a time.
Put the guns down. Let's talk it out.
Some have lost a loved one.
My nephew is 18 years old.
But everyone here at this peace walk has lost their sense of safety.
We got to bring it together, make it safer for the young people.
The problem is so acute, activists across the tri-state will do anything to raise awareness on the scourge of gun violence plaguing so many of our local neighborhoods, be it a march or even a mural. The goal is always the same: safer streets.
We're taking back our city. We're taking back our streets. We're taking back our young people. We say we want you to live.
The Youth Shelter Program of Westchester is the only organization in New York State that provides an alternative to prison for young people navigating the criminal justice system.
Our young people are hurting because they feel they have to pick up a gun to be safe.
It sponsored this event, hoping the colorful message will inspire young people to put down the gun and pick up a paintbrush.
We are an amazing community, but if we don't create space like the one we're doing today, then we'll continue to live in the darkness when there's so much light.
The size and intensity of this crowd are an example of that light, and the hope that change is possible if communities continue to come together, a realization that overwhelmed the artist herself.
You know, it's a big responsibility to be asked to really portray this type of moment. My family has also lost someone to gun violence, and it's really difficult to embody a piece of artwork that reflects the pain and the suffering that a family feels.
This is the side of gun violence our prison gun survey didn't capture, the overwhelming grief that follows family members and loved ones for the rest of their lives.
My son is gone. I just want justice for my son. He was shot in the back. He was just 14. He didn't even get to live a life.
Tara Williams' only son, Zaire Fernandez, became the latest innocent life caught in the crossfire back in March of 2023 in Mount Vernon. But she had to wait almost 2 years for justice when in January, one of the men responsible was finally sentenced to 25 years in prison.
I still can't eat sometimes. I can't sleep. It's been horrible. My life will never be the same. My life has changed forever.
Tara's just one of so many mothers and fathers across the tri-state living shattered lives, grieving children sidelined by violence. Our hope is that our survey will play a role in the search for a solution as community members, law enforcement, legislators, and even convicted killers all team up so that we can no longer live under the gun.